Was telling you earlier about my realization, my insights about childhood. Do you have any stories like that?
So I've got two. I'm not going to talk about, I'm not ready right here, right now to talk about the first one that
Sure.
came to mind.
Sure. I understand.
But the second one I mentioned for the first time, probably on air during our last live stream. The We're getting rid of you, taking you to
Oh,
the
work.
orphanage and putting me in the car. There was crying. I was sorry. I got my ass beat. I don't have a problem with any of that because I can honestly look back and go, probably deserved every ass beating I got. And I was not abused. It was not excessive. It was earned usually. And that was the norm back then. But the then driving me to the orphanage and pulling up onto the property in hindsight was a little bit much. I'm not going to see my grandparents again. Everything I know is getting ripped away. And the point was already well made long before then.
Right.
Unfortunately, I had a dad who suffered a serious spinal cord injury when I was four-ish, five-ish. He had to retire from the police department a few years later because he physically couldn't get into a confrontation with a suspect anymore. So there were some health issues, and so I always had this fear of loss that I've never really talked about either, And my dad had a heart attack at a relatively young age. And
What age? What age was it?
I would have been in somewhere between fourth and sixth grade. So
Okay.
I would have been around, what is that, 10,
Yeah.
11-ish?
9, 10.
9, 10. Yeah, I'm really bad at that. I have to really work hard with my kids to figure that out.
It seems like fifth grade was 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. So somewhere around there, because I remember that through the last few years of elementary school.
Yeah.
And I have this one memory of my dad. He had a surgery. He's deaf in one ear, and it was this ear. Because if you made a smart comment, you were on his right, you didn't get the backhand sometimes because he didn't hear it. But there was a tumor on something to do with his ear. He went in. I remember him coming out of the hospital from that. I remember being in the car watching him he had one of those long overcoats, old school, like wool. The collar was pulled up and him walking across the street to us. For some reason, that memory has always been a very pronounced. It's not fuzzy. It's like, I kind of remember. I remember him walking over back to the car, being with mom in the car, and just no idea if it has any impact per se, but I always had this little underlying fear he was going to have another heart attack and die. And I guess that would be that fear of abandonment, even though it wasn't.
I never really thought about abandonment as a thing until I started doing coaching and guys started expressing concerns about it. And like you, I have a similar type story where there was this abandonment.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize that there's a certain number of stories that we have that stand out for us, that are clear as day.
Yeah.
But we also didn't really fully understand everything that was going on at the time. And we didn't really fully have all the context and experience and stuff like that. So it just seemed odd. Yeah. We know we just didn't like the experience. And that's all we had at that time. It kind of made the world feel scary.
And if you were to truly say, okay, did you have good parents? And I can go on to a list of some complaints about my mom, but overall, I had good parents.
Yeah.
And I had a good life and a good upbringing in spite of a few challenges.
Right.
My dad being on disability because of a spinal cord injury that could have put him in a wheelchair. And back in the 70s, it wasn't as accessible as it is now.
Right.
And
right. Yeah, I don't even think that accessibility was a word that applied to people.
Like, they looked at you as crippled, not handicapped,
right.
Not impaired. It was crippled.
Yeah, it was crippled. Yeah, that was the vocabulary, the language.
Yeah. And again, you were privy to the conversation with my sister, the last conversation, basically, where she was playing victim and how she blamed mom for everything. And we see with some, I didn't have a dad growing up. You're 50 now. You have responsibility to learn this stuff on your own.
That's a clear indication that there are childhood wounds, childhood trauma.
That haven't been addressed.
Things that have not been addressed.
Yeah. No. Am I shaming that man? No.
No.
Because most of us don't realize, oh, wait, we have the power to work on this. And we all have some wounds, the child.
Right.
Some trauma.
If it's not addressed, we're still dealing with it, which is something that needs to be addressed.
If you honestly are sitting here saying, I had no wound, no trauma, I don't want to say you're lying, but you might be misleading yourself. And because you look at the very rich, these kids are the biggest dumpster fires in the world. Wait, they had everything.
Right.
You know, where there are people go, they had a perfect life. There's no perfect life. None of us get out of here without scars.
Right.
And it isn't the scars that define it. It's how do we learn and deal from it, become resilient, and then take the lessons so that we don't do it to our kids, so that we can help another brother.
Yeah. Learn and grow through it.
Yeah.
Learn and grow.
I have no resentment with my parents, with my upbringing.
Right.
And like I said, all of my beatings were on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I deserved every one.
I'm less interested in blame for any of that stuff these days, more just interested in understanding.
Yeah.
Understanding what I'm still carrying, understanding how it has affected me, understanding what to do now, right? Where to go from here.
Yeah. And what I love about what we do, yes, we help other men, helping ourselves too.
Oh, sure.
We're reminding ourselves of the things we let kind of slide in our memory, what we need to address. And there is not a coach in the world who doesn't have issues to work on.
Right.
There's no perfect in this.
That's right.
There is perfectly where we are right now, accepting where we are and loving ourselves enough to know that we can do that. Not in a bad way, just because we're moving forward and up. I look at it as it's always forward and up.
Yeah.
And as men, we're really good at beating ourselves up for the 3 steps back.
Yeah. I love the phrase, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
That to me just sums it up. Just walking each other home.
So you're not alone. You're not broken. Doesn't mean we all have things. None of us are broken, and we all have things to improve on or work on. That has nothing to do with being broken. That's part of the human condition.
Makes us relatable.
Yeah.
Now let's eat.
Sounds like a plan.
With a